Rightio, so on today's little video, let's talk about big deers, their antlers, and the size of their head compared to their antlers. I'll show you some examples of some 25 and undersized deer, and you'll notice that their skull is quite large. Once you put some eyeballs and some skin and nose on this animal, it builds the head up quite a bit, which is what you typically see before you shoot them. This animal has particularly large, like heavy mass. It's a big deer around the bases, right through. This is 29 3/4 inch. And the moral of my story here today is just go and buy the nose to skull distances so that you can quickly see that deer in the bush and straight away go, nah, it's not a shooter. One of the biggest giveaways for it not being a shooter is its head looks quite large compared to its antlers. So going off this thing, which is about the size of a foot, it's your foot. Your shoe will fit between the nose and the brows. Boom. So you want at least 2 of these feet above its head in terms of its antlers. So let me give you a quick gizmo of this. 1 foot. 1 foot. 2 foot. Now we're up in that class, and that's where we want to be. 28 plus. This is 29 3/4. So there's bugger all difference in 30-inch antler, and that doesn't always be the case because the antlers can sometimes bow out. This one's quite narrow and V. Some of the stags will come out and really go wide, and width will always give you away. With a 30-inch wide animal, even if it's 25, 26 inches, still looks pretty good on the hoof. That's up to you to then grab his ears and start seeing how many ears are up his brows, up his main beam, sorry. Because each of their ears is about 7 to 9 inches long, can't remember off the top of my head. And you just think of how many of them go up the horns. You want to put about 5 of them on there and you'll be laughing. That's not going to be the case though. It's going to be a lot of smaller deer, and that's where you'll really notice the size of the antlers compared to its head. The antlers look small and the head looks big. So let's see how we go on some live deer in the field, because there's a pretty quick way you can tell when the Sambar stag's got his head down feeding. From the top of the horns, while the deer's face is on the earth eating grass, should be in line with the deer's back line. I'm going to set up some diagrams and show you this visually. The lie detector, I'm going to measure from the front of his coronets down to his nose, just to get a rough idea. This will vary a little bit, but this is a typical form, which typically has the Sambar's appearance. You could argue it's 12 to 13 inches, probably 13 inches long across the face. Each ear, from the front, is around 7 inches long. What will get a lot of people also is when the deer is walking away, the antlers will look quite pronounced and pretty big. That's quite often a bit of a beginner of ground shrinkage. Once you shoot it and then you go over to it and you realise it wasn't quite as big as when it was running away. It's because there's nothing at the back of the head and their antlers do sit up on top of the head. So all you'll see is what we want to see. So from behind, your ears could be anywhere up to 8 inches long. So then you do your math as it goes up, boom, boom, boom. Is it enough for you to shoot? Are you happy with it? This particular deer is sort of hard to see because of the angle of his head. It's more natural. so it can make the skull look quite a bit smaller. In turn, you think these antlers are a little bit bigger, but let's look at him from side on. Now that we're side on, we get a lot better idea of the skull size, his ears, and what's above his head. Taking the foot into accommodation here, it's only about 1.5, which is not going to cut the mustard these days. That's a 25-inch antler on his longer side, probably 24 here, and that was my first deer stag that I shot back in the early days, 2008 or even earlier. But the moral of the story here is face to antlers. Apart from this old girl, you'll see the rest of these deer are all got the same size skull. Right through. Nothing's different about them. The coronet, bone, minimal difference. Age, very similar. Possibly the younger of the mob here. But this just indicates that most of all the sambar that you'll run into have got the same size skull. Even Handlebarry, his skull is the same size. So for the sake of the argument and the demonstration here, this is a shed head. I've got quite a few of these over the years. A lot of my bigger heads have been in the last, say, 3 years. Been hunting for a lot of years before then, and had that Australian hunted mindset that if it's got antlers, to shoot it. So I've got a shed full of heads like this, and that's what we're trying to change. You don't want a shed full, you want a room full with fur on. But regardless, this is just going to put the foot test to the showcase here. Same story, you still got a foot long skull. We're going to go up 1 foot, and his tops are only just above my foot. Go up here, we want him up to here, at least. So for sake of argument, here's still a 23, 24 inch deer. 22 maybe, 22, 23. He needs a couple more years, at least. So let's try and work towards that, and you'll start noticing this in your own areas, especially if you start leaving those spikers now. And 12 inches, 18 inches, 22 inches, even 24 inches if you can hold out, they're going to be 26s, even 27s on good feed next year, especially once you start lowering those hind numbers. These stags will get into that better feed, more of it, and be fighting to put on bigger horns. Come the rut, they can establish their dominance in their area. So let's keep it up. And just lastly, little visual to leave this with. These are some big deer, that's what we're chasing. These are woodshed heads. What could he have become? Give him 4 years. Look how wide he's going to have been. The inners. He's got a lot, this deer, the brows. He just needed time. He's not going to get any bigger, and he's not getting any bigger in the woodshed, so just think about it, guys, and let's keep it happening. Give it 5 years, whack those hinds. Let's get some big deer back in the bush.